Today's show is brought to you by LootCrate.com. Save 10% on any new subscription at www.trylootcrate.com/blackcat. Enter promo code BRIDGE10 for 10% savings.
You were terrified of an old woman who you said used to come visit you at night. I dismissed your stories. I told you to grow up. And then I saw her for myself. At first I thought it was a camera problem. And then I saw her again. In each photo, she got closer. And closer. And closer to you.
Is imagination simply contained in the mind? Or does it tap into an unseen world with messages waiting to be told? There is a place where legends cross over into our world, where strange visions and whispers beckon, and superstition takes hold. Step into the Black Cat's shadow.
Welcome back to the Black Cat Shadow. I'm your host, Andy, podcasting from Kansas City, Missouri.
And I'm Phantom Dark Dave, coming at you from the heart of Texas. With us today, an actor who shows his face in a variety of genres. However, it was when he hid his face behind a black veil that he made us jump out of our skin. He played the terrifying role of the old woman from the 2010 film Insidious, the master of the photobomb, the cover of Fangoria magazine number 302. Please welcome Philip Friedman. Philip, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Harry. How is everybody out there?
We're doing great. Yeah, Philip, so we're excited to talk to you today and give the listeners a chance to get to know you a little bit better. And looking at your acting career, it seems like you got started acting a little bit later than maybe the usual actor or actress. What got you motivated to start acting in the first place?
Well, you ready for a little bit of a long story? I'll see if I can make it, shorter. I had never had any aspirations for acting. I was a businessman for the most, in my earlier years. And, the bottom line is I basically got thrown into acting while I was living in Austin, Texas, of all places. And it happened in a way where, I met someone and oddly enough, that person was like a dream therapist. And dreams have been pretty important in my life, the dreams that we all have during the evening hours. Sometimes we remember them and sometimes we don't. But in any case, I was going to this shamanistic type person to help me interpret my dreams, and at one point she asked me if I'd ever thought about acting, and I said no, I'm not interested in it. And one thing led to another, and she led me to a person who was the head of the acting community in Austin, and then I started kind of working with her on a one-to-one basis to help get my emotions going more, but not really ever interested in acting. And at one point she asked me if I was free in the afternoon, and as it turned out I was. And at that time I was also teaching personal growth courses. And we can talk about that later, about that what that means. But in any case, I was pretty free that afternoon, and she said there was an audition for an insurance commercial, and the casting director was a friend of hers, and she thought I might be right for it. And so I went to this audition, which was a huge cattle call in Austin, and every actor from Dallas and Houston were there as well. And as it turned out, I didn't get the role, but a few weeks later, I was invited to a Christmas party for the acting community, and the only two people I knew there were the casting director and this woman named Mona, who was the head of this acting community that I was working with. And so I got to talking. As it turned out, I didn't get that role, but the casting director said, I did such a great job, and I said, I did. If I did such a great job, how come I didn't get the role? And she said, well, you just didn't have the right look, but if I were you, I'd get an agent. Anyway, one thing led to another, and before I knew it, she contacted me about a PBS docudrama series that was being filmed in Austin, and I got a role in that, and you know, the rest was kind of historical. I got really turned on to it, and started taking acting classes in various places, and wound up here in LA and did some work.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's the very short version. I could have extended that for 5 more minutes, but
no, it's. I mean, to me, you know, it's a fascinating story. Just hearing about like what drove you, to that, and your dreams and things like that. I think it's interesting to think about. Your dreams, they can say stuff about yourself that you may not even realize. I think sometimes people wonder what dreams are, and you could talk about your subconscious and stuff like that. So it's always interesting, like to find out, to look into your dreams and kind of see what they're saying, and they may even lead you down a new life path. You never know. So.
Absolutely. I'm a strong believer of a new life path, and quite honestly, at this point in my life, my point of view is that life is always giving us some sort of guidance. And some people get it in the form of dreams, other people, get it in the form of, an image they may have, or somebody may come up to them and say, hey, check this out, or, I think, that's part of the mystery of life, is that we never know what's around the corner. And if we did, life would be pretty boring, wouldn't it? I mean, if we knew what was coming tomorrow, or the next day, or 2 months from now, it wouldn't be very interesting. We'd be, oh, okay, well, I'll be doing that tomorrow, or I'll be meeting this person on the street corner who's going to have an impact on the rest of my life. I mean, just think about it. I'm sure you guys have had experiences in your lives where there was a fork in the road, and for some reason you took the right fork instead of the left fork. And I don't mean, the right one that was necessarily right, but the one to the right rather than the one to the left, in terms of direction. And the impact that it had on your lives. I mean, have you experienced that at all, or do you see that?
Yeah, I mean, sure, for me. I mean, and I haven't really talked about this a whole lot on the podcast, but I mean, I worked in the telecommunications industry for almost 20 years. And then I just, one day I said, I don't really like doing this. I haven't really ever liked doing it. So I was like, I'm going to set off and try to do my own thing and do this podcast where I get to talk to interesting people, rather than, doing the technical stuff I was doing that I really had no passion for. So yeah, and this has been one of those things where I just had to step out, and try, believe in myself, and hope that, if I make this step, that good things will come my way, and if I put the work into it, that good things will come out of it. So yeah, I mean, that's definitely, for me, that's been an interesting experience for sure.
Well, yeah. And if I might take a moment, I know we have a limited time, and I want to get to your questions, but I would encourage people, to just have their ears and eyes open I mean, you guys or whoever's listening to this program can do it as an experiment. Just for a few days, have an intention of having some kind of guidance about it, some kind of question. Everybody has questions in their lives about whether it's relationships or direction in life or health or well-being or whatever that are not answered yet. And for people to put it out to life, universe, God, whatever you want to call it, that you're open to hearing what's in your best and highest interest, and just be open to seeing. It may come in a dream. If it comes in a dream and you don't understand it, maybe someone around the corner is someone who can help you interpret your dreams. Or in cases of me personally, aside from my dreams, I've had a question come up, and all of a sudden I'm driving and I look at a billboard and there's an answer on the billboard. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, it's pretty blatant. It's not exactly, tailored. It says, Philip, do this or do that.
Right.
But, just by the implication of looking up and seeing a street sign or something that says something that's so apropos to, what's going in your life, that, that could be one way of life, giving you an answer. So I'm going to stop my preaching in that way. But,
That's okay.
But that's one thing I'm really passionate about is that life always has answers for us, and sometimes it's not the ones that we expect, but if there's an open door or something that opens up, my philosophy is go inside the room, check what's in there. If it feels like it's worth staying in there and doing more investigation, hang out for a while. If it's not, then you just leave the room, leave the experience. So you've heard my little spiel.
No, I mean it's definitely fascinating. I'm very I'm very interested in hearing the stuff like that, and just hearing how people find their way through life. It can be an interesting topic for sure. So one of those things that one of your first projects in acting that you did was in this it was like they call it a mockumentary, but it's a kind of a documentary style film called The Shadow of the Blair Witch, and it was something that actually came out to promote the second Blair Witch movie. And, in all honesty, I feel like this TV film was a lot better than the movie it was made to promote. How did you get involved in The Shadow of the Blair Witch?
Well, that's an interesting story also. I was in a kind of like a personal growth course given by a man named Breck Costin here in L.A., who was kind of like a personal coach, and also he gave seminars, and a lot of people who were in the industry showed up at these seminars, and they weren't necessarily for actors, they were for anyone in the industry, including producers and directors as well. And there was one guy in that seminar whose name was Ben Rock. I don't know if you know who he is. And Ben happened to be one of the producers of the Blair Witch Project. He was from Orlando in Florida, and that's where I think two other people who helped get this project or got the project off the ground were from. And so Ben was one of those people, and we just got to talking, and he told me about this project and said there might be a role in there for me. And I had just, kind of gotten into acting at that point. And, one thing led to another, and he had me play the role of Adian Quinn, I think the character was, who was basically a bookshop, a cult bookshop owner. It was about, 16 years ago.
Yeah, it was a while, and I think your character, even though he wasn't in the thing, the film much. I mean, I really liked the character. I thought that you were able to add an interesting perspective to the story, and I actually wish the Adian was in that mockumentary a little bit more. Was there any deleted scenes?
I think for the most part, like I said, it was 16 years ago or more, and I don't recall. I'm sure, it was edited and everything wasn't in there, but if if it was, and I'm pretty sure it was, I don't recall, given the number of years that it's been. But Ben was an outstanding guy to work with, and it kind of threw me in the industry here more in L.A., and so it was a good experience. Actually, I just remembered the lead guy was it the lead guy? There was one other character that he asked me if I wanted to play, which was one of the lead characters, and he had someone else that that was interested in that role, but for some reason, and it was, I'm trying to remember which role it was, because again, I don't recall the story that well, but it was one of the lead characters, and as it turned out, like a day before I was scheduled, he was going to give me that character, and for some reason this guy showed up and said that he was available for the project. So I wound up getting the Adie and Quinn role instead. But other than that, I don't recall.
So in that role, you play I think it was a practicing pagan practitioner or something like that.
Yeah, a Wiccan.
A Wiccan, yeah. Did you have to do any kind of research for that role?
Well, I think with anything, I mean, at that time, I don't know if Google was pretty big, but certainly I tried to get any information upon Wiccans, and I did do some research, and found out that Wiccans were not necessarily evil characters. They were just people that had certain beliefs, just like Christians have certain beliefs, or Jews or Muslims have certain beliefs. Wiccans have their beliefs as well. So, I did do a little investigating.
For you, the listeners of the Black Cat Shadow podcast, Loot Crate is offering an opportunity to save 10% on any new subscription at lootcrate.com. Enter promo code BRIDGE10 for 10% savings. And don't forget, Loot Crate is a monthly mystery crate that delivers the best in geek and gaming gear, from collectibles, apparel, tech gadgets, art, and other epic gear. It's like Comic-Con in a box.
We're going to move into talking about Insidious. I think, Dave, you got some questions on that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just biting my tongue waiting for you to wrap up Shadow of the Blair Witch there so we can do this. All right, Philip, you ready for the steak and potatoes here?
Okay.
All right.
If you say so.
Hey,
I'm a vegetarian.
I call it that.
I'm a vegetarian, so we don't talk about steak here.
My wife's a vegetarian. I tried it. I ended up gaining too much weight because I was eating too many sweets, so I had to go back on that. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay. So we talked about Shadow of the Blair Witch, which was in 2000. A decade later, you found yourself in another horror film, which I'm pretty sure everybody knows and loves, which is Insidious. I want to know, what got you back into doing a horror picture?
Well, if I might say so, it was not like I was chomping at the bit to do horror. I'm a character actor, and I've had various types of roles. And, horror is not the genre that, I would have said, oh, I've got to, I'm dying to get back into it, or I need to get back into it. It was nothing like that. I got, a call from my agent, regarding this role, and, I'm just asked to go in and audition. And, and I did, and eventually maybe a week or so later, I got another call saying that, the director wants to meet you, and I said, well, does that mean that I'm cast for the role? And they said, well, not yet, but the director wants to meet you. And so, like I said, about a week later, I met, James Wan, who everybody must know by now. I mean, he's a big name out there now. He directed Fast and Furious 7, along with, other horror projects, and now he's directing Aquaman, I think, and being shot in Australia. But anyway, I went in to meet James, and we had a conversation, and he's asking me all kinds of different questions, and at that point I said, do you think this is right for me? And he said, well, he says, I want you to. This is kind of an odd thing, he said, I want you to try on the outfit, this character's outfit, and get dressed up, and then come back, to see me. Well, I mean, when I say come back, I was, where everybody was, that at their main office, and so I met with the costume designer and got into this, black outfit, and black dress was a little bit interesting. And and they put some makeup on me, and here I was. I went to meet James again in costume, and that was it. At that point, he said, "Are you comfortable with this?" And you all right with wearing this? And and I said, "Yeah." And and I said, "Whatever you want me to do, I'll do." And and at that point, I was offered the role, and 2 days later, I was on the set.
Wow, that's pretty awesome. I mean, and we all know certain actors and actresses have to do different things to really project themselves into the character, and that kind of leads me into the next question I was going to ask you is, from what I've seen and noticed, this is the first time that you did play kind of like a character role like this. Did you find that you were able to unlock or express a side of you that you didn't know you had in you before, to be terrifying?
I think, my take on that is, at least from my perspective, is that we all have some kind of aspect, of rage or feelings inside of us that, we may not have expressed, or we may have expressed in other ways, getting extremely angry at a person. I mean, I can recall I've gotten so angry at someone that, I punched a hole through a wall to vent my anger. That wasn't very productive, and I was much younger, at the time. But, you just call, I mean, from my perspective, we call on, on an aspect of ourselves, to conjure up a role that we're in. And, part of it is, is drawing from our past, our history, not necessarily killing someone, but a history of, wanting to hurt someone, but knowing the limits of what one can do, one checks it and holds it back. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I would direct everybody there listening to, just look at their own lives, if they have any question about that, and see if there was an opportunity, or rather than an opportunity, there was an instance in their lives where they got so angry, that they didn't know how to express their anger. So I think most actors go inside themselves, and look at their own experiences and draw from it, and and then put yourself in that character role.
Yeah, and something that Andy and I were talking about before we started talking to you for this episode was, you're right in the very beginning of the film, before the title sequence. So the combination of seeing your character and then the music that comes in, the two things just completely set the tone for the film. So I got to give it up to you and to the makeup department. You guys were able to really create something, some kid's nightmare, that's for sure.
I'll tell you, I've been going around to conventions, horror conventions, probably since Insidious, close to when Insidious opened, and signing autographs, meeting fans. And I can't tell you how many times I've had people come up to me and say, "I'm so glad I met you in person. Now I don't have to have nightmares anymore." And no, seriously, I have had that, dozens and dozens and dozens of times, people have done that. And when at the Toronto Film Festival, where the film was first screened, there were about 1,200 people in the audience, And I can't tell you how many people were screaming in the beginning with that one, scene, along with the music that Joe Bashara, masterfully created.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah.
And that's a funny segue because people are coming to you about their nightmares. You can recommend that dream therapist to them. Sorry, I had to. Another question I had is, anybody who watches this film can see right away that it looks like there is so much going on set. At any point in time, was the experience overwhelming?
No, not at all. I don't remember it. I mean, I had a good time on the set. And, of course, there's, the makeup, which is challenging. It was about 2.5 hours. And then, maybe 45 minutes to an hour to get it off. And, it was a great experience. So, I wasn't overwhelmed at any point, during that. And everything, James is a great director, and everything went along really well. And, no real hiccups that I was aware of.
Yeah, I know that I've never personally sat in a chair for 2 to 3 hours for, getting makeup applied and removed, but that's got to be tedious. I was wondering, I know it's been a long time, but how long did that production go? Was that like a 2-week deal, or did it go to a month?
No, I think it was altogether about 24 days, something like that. A little short than 4 weeks, like 3 weeks and 2 days or something like that.
Okay.
And it was all shot in L.A.
Okay. Yeah. So weird question for you. You got to bear with me.
Yeah, go ahead.
My family and we take Christmas photos every year, and I was wondering, would you recommend I try that black wedding gown for our Christmas photo?
Only if you want to bring up unwanted feelings, stir up some feelings, and I might add, maybe even desires.
I got roasted by the old woman from Insidious. You heard it here first. I love it.
Yeah, well, Philip, we want to thank you for coming on the show today. It's been a fascinating conversation. And we hope that the listeners will, take the chance to get to know you a little bit better. And did you have any projects coming up that you could talk about that you're involved in?
Well, I've got a couple supposedly that I'm attached to, but knowing, a couple of them were supposed to have been started and finished already, but in this industry, until you get onto the set, you really don't know whether a project is starting or not. So, and then I don't know if you have any fans in LA. I'm going to be at Stan Lee's LA Comic-Con at a table that is at a booth. I think it's called Nomad. N is in Nancy, OMADD. Their table. And basically, they're illustrators that have come up with a illustrated book. That's pretty neat, actually. You might want to go to the website. It's NO, M as in Mary, ADD.net. And they're coming out with an illustrated book, which supposedly I'm going to be narrating. Or narrating a portion of it, and it's a fantasy adventure, and it's pretty cool. You should see some of the images. So that will be something hopefully coming in the future. And if these other projects come along, that would be great. And one of the things that we just spoke about 15 minutes ago is that we never know what's coming around the corner. And hopefully what's coming around the corner will be fun and great to be involved with.
I guess it just boils down to the fork in the road, right? Which direction we take.
Correct, right? And what's at the at that door, that first door that's in the fork of the road, or the second, or the third.
What was the date for that convention you're going to be at?
It's over Halloween weekend. Yeah, it's the Friday that starts Friday the 27th, and it's Saturday and Sunday, the 28th and 29th of October, and that's Stan Lee's LA Comic-Con.
That's awesome. Yeah, any of our listeners that are out there in California, definitely go out there and check that out. Say hi to Philip. Tell him Black Cat Shadow sent you. Yeah, but yeah, we just want to say thanks, Philip, for coming on the show, and it's been a real pleasure to talk to you today.
Yeah, likewise. And if people want to contact me on Facebook, they're always welcome to go there, or they're welcome to contact me directly through my IMDb page.
And thank you for tuning into this episode. As always, you can reach us on social media. On Twitter, we are at Black Cat Podcast. And Phantom Dark Dave's Twitter is at Phantom Dark Dave. And you can also find us on Facebook and Horror Amino. You can email us at blackcatpodcast@gmail.com. You can email Dakota if you'd like at dakshadowbane@gmail.com. That's DAKSHADOWBANE@gmail.com. You can also visit our website at www.blackcatshadow.com, where you'll find all of our past episodes and all of our different media links where you can find our episodes to download from iTunes and Stitcher and etc. And also you'll find a link to our eBay movie store where you can buy a movie and support the show. So coming up, we have a couple more interviews coming up for the month of October, so we think you guys will enjoy them. It's going to keep on with the October celebration leading up to Halloween. So remember to take a closer look at the world around you, and you may just find that it is stranger and more mysterious than you thought, especially in the Black Cat Shadow.